You are listening to the Enormocast.
A couple years ago, Black Diamond introduced the ultralight Camelot, the baddest cam the world has ever seen. And frankly, you'd think they'd drop the mic right there. But like the over-caffeinated squirrels they are, the climbing nerds at BD went back and redesigned the old Camelots to introduce the new C4 to your quiver. They made the C4 lighter, broadened the trigger for chubby knuckles, and the Big Daddies sport a snazzy trigger keeper for smooth racking and deployment when the going gets wide. And then, probably after the 12th espresso, they did some little tweaks that only core climbers would notice when desperately run out and skittering like trapped weasels. You know the feeling.
The emergency disrupt system is now activated. 3, 2, 1.
So avoid the quaking and the beaded brow sweat by checking out the new C4s at blackdiamondequipment.com, or better yet, get them under your own chubby knuckles at a gear shop near you. Does your neck hurt playing someone else's project? Does your partner get in way over his head even on the warm-ups? Does the phrase, "I'll just do this move one more time," make your eyeballs spin? Then let Belay Specs fight for you.
When my boyfriend started falling lower and lower on his project, Belay Specs saved my neck and got me a new boyfriend.
Belay or neck pain, also known as BNP, can interfere with work, play, family, and snapping your head around at the gym to check out those abs. So if your neck has been injured in an epic belay session, go to belayspecs.com to see if you qualify for a pair of belay specs and to get what you deserve. Enter Enormocast at checkout for a discount. Belay Specs is not licensed to give legal advice to anyone. Results may vary by steepness. If Belay Specs cause you to trip, fall down, run into a door, nausea, dry mouth, you're probably too high to climb to begin with.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
big
big
house. We
place
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold it out.
20,000
seats.
We really should.
The hell are you doing?
I couldn't sleep. I'm checking the ropes. There was a frayed end on your rope, and I'm cutting it out.
Good weather, bad weather. No, later, anytime.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Galouse. It is April 12th, 2019, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is weird. And this is episode 173 of the Enormocast, the return of Craig DeMartino. That's right. Craig DeMartino from legendary episode 11, 2012, I believe, has come crawling back to the Enormocast. No, actually, Craig and I have been talking about doing this for quite some time and catching up and seeing how the last 5 or 6 years have been going for him and what's new. So we finally got an opportunity when he was here in the Roaring Fork Valley, and we got down in the van and got it done. So welcome back to Craig DeMartino. And if you haven't heard episode 11, probably still one of the best. Go back and check that out, because then you'll know why we're talking to Craig again. And I want to reach out and thank everybody who responded so positively to the Mark Twight episodes. Those were a long time in the making, and I think we got something done that the Enormocast is sort of uniquely prepared to do. And there's a lot of good climbing content out there in the podcast world, but everybody has their niche, and I think we kind of nailed ours sitting down with Mark on those last 2 episodes. So thanks again. A lot of folks have reached out to say that they really enjoyed it and that they felt it was as Enormocasty as it gets. I guess that's for better or worse. Okay, not much business to report. Not too much happening. It's spring climbing season, which is so nice, although it snowed last night here in Carbondale again. But we're hanging out. We're waiting to get the solid days going. So I will take this moment to remind you that you can, in fact, support the Enormocast a bunch of different ways. Of course, heading over and shopping at our sponsors and letting them know that you appreciate their support for this thing. Also, you can go to enormocast.com. You can click on the Help Out tab and do a bunch of different things, including donate to the podcast if you're feeling a little bit generous and you feel like you've derived something important and positive from this thing over the last few months or years. And also, over there at the Enormocast, there's a shop with some t-shirts and some hats. Pretty cool hats from Peter Gilroy, one of the longtime supporters of the podcast, and some shirts that a bunch of friends kicked in to help make, including Tracy Wilson, who's been on the show. Her family shop up in Idaho prints those t-shirts for me. So check those out over at the shop. And finally, last thing, if you want a free sticker, of course, you can send an address to chris@enormocast.com. Love having those stickers out there. I hear about people spotting them in unlikely places, which is pretty cool. Okay, thank you for helping me shore up the economics of this whole thing. All right, on to Craig DeMartino. Craig and I met up here in Carbondale. He was up in Aspen doing some work with some veterans and came down and we sat in the van and got this one done. It was great to catch up. If you do not know Craig's story, of course, it's laid out there in episode 11. But if you want to just forge ahead, a quick rundown is that in 2002, I believe, Craig took a 100-foot fall off of a climb on Lumpy Ridge in Rocky Mountain National Park, hit the ground, a victim of an unfortunately somewhat common mistake of miscommunication between the belayer and him about lowering versus rappelling. In fact, it was after this episode that I got on my little hobby horse about that, which you may have heard me before. Nevertheless, should have died, Craig DeMartino, when he hit the ground from 100 feet. Not a lot of people survived that. He did, but in the subsequent months and year and a half, he lost one of his legs. And his story goes on from there, of coming back to climbing, keeping his family together, getting through the pain, the surgeries, the misery, the depression. So yeah, that's why we catch up with Craig here, because the recovery is really ongoing. And we'll learn about how he deals with even the ongoing pain and things like that in this episode, as well as how he's reaching out to the adaptive community, trying to help some people through the similar path of pain and realization that life is going to be quite different after a severe injury like that. Yeah, and like a bunch of these Enormocasts, one of the fringe benefits has been that I have become friends with Craig over the years after we did that together, and it had such an impact. We ended up talking a lot about it and got to know him a lot better, got to know his wife Cindy, met the kids who have grown up a lot since that first episode. So it was fun for me to catch up with Craig and find out what he's been up to, and I hope that you guys enjoy it too. So I've been laying on the TC Pro from Sportiva for the last few months, like that annoying guy at the gym who's still trying to convince you that trad climbing is the coolest thing you can do on a rope. Spoiler alert, it is actually. It is still the coolest thing. But what if you're like, Chris, I don't climb slabs like some muscle-bound bonobo. I'm more like a gazelle. You know, if a gazelle had opposable thumbs and a moderately popular Instagram feed. Well then, my little Bovidae, look no further than the Futura from Sportiva. Refined by the world's best climbers, the Futura excels in steep precision footwork, and the no-edge technology gives them unparalleled sensitivity, just like you. So if you want to go from prey to predator on those steep sport climbs and boulders, check out a pair of Futuras at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started. How long has it been?
Oh man.
I mean, you were episode 11.
Yeah. So that's like
that
1937.
Yeah, it would have. It feels like it. It feels like it.
Yeah, it was like 06.
No.
No?
No. Stop.
Damn it.
Not even close, my friend. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that out because it makes you sound old.
Yeah. I thought because I swore.
No. You're allowed to swear, remember?
I am.
So, it was actually 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because, it was probably the year after I started, and I started it in December of 2011. So it would have happened. I think I would have talked to you the 4 months later at 5 Point and then put it out some point during that summer.
And it's funny. So that was 2012. That's a lot. That's a long time, right? And like I've said to you many times, like I get people, it's not once a week, but it's probably twice a month.
Right.
Will contact me and say, oh my God, I just listened to that episode. It changed my perspective. It's like, holy crap, because the story's so weird, you know, it's so crazy. It still seems to have like this shelf life of its own, which is really amazing to me.
Well, you got to give yourself some credit because it's a vivid, very dynamic account of what happened, because I remember not knowing too much about you.
Yeah.
Other than, obviously you had lost your leg. I mean, that's obvious. I remember sitting there like kind of feeling the way I felt when I watched Free Solo, to be honest with you. Where obviously I knew that
slightly nauseous.
Well, yeah, slightly nauseous, sweaty palms. I know that you're okay because you're sitting there in front of me. So it's not a spoiler to know that you didn't die when you fell.
Right.
But everything else about it was just astounding. And give yourself some credit. And I was so new to podcasting, I don't think I can give myself much credit, because I totally just remember being there sort of dumbfounded. And I haven't listened to it in a while, but I'm sure I just like babbled a couple transitions.
No.
Talked about it. But I remember a lot of powerful stuff. There was obviously the description of you falling, which is a visceral thing for climbers.
Yep.
And
it's the worst nightmare.
Yeah. And it's also an accident, that continues to happen.
Oh God. Yeah. All the time.
It's something, it's since that episode and just, it's become a little bit of a like hobby horse of the Enormocast to talk about like communication in that situation and rappelling versus being lowered and all that sort of stuff. We hammered all the time along with the check your knot thing. But then, there was some other, I remember the moment of you climbing again was really powerful at Wild Iris.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just, there was a lot of pieces and parts to it. To me, it was a big inspiration. I mean, you're probably part of the reason I'm still doing this.
Oh.
Because, it was like floundering around. There's some good episodes in the first 10. There's, it's a lot of like variety and kind of figuring it out. And then like that one, I mean, honestly, it's still one of the best. And I'm on like, this will come out as like in the 170 some. This will be like 73 or 74 or something like that. Yeah, isn't that weird?
That is really weird. Holy crap, dude. That's a lot.
I know.
Oh.
I know. Isn't it?
Damn
it's like,
it.
I can't even believe.
I didn't know there were 170 climbers.
I know. Well, that was a big thing when I started it. People were like, you're going to run out of people to talk to. Like really quick.
Never.
Well, part of the thing too, in the realization of what happened in that episode, and I mean, we're referencing, this is going to be a whole new episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, this will stand alone, but it's worth your time to go back and listen to it. But, that actually was a big part of convincing me that, we can go all these different places, because I didn't know who you were until you came to 5 Point.
Right.
And you were on the bill and Julie or somebody was like, oh, you have to talk to Craig. And then I looked you up and I was like, oh my God, yeah, this will be amazing, or this will be a really cool angle.
Right.
But that just made me realize like, yeah, I don't have to talk to famous climbers. I mean, you're famous now in a sense. I mean, you're well known.
I snorted.
Yeah. That'll be on there. Yeah. But it's not like you're the Andras or the Honolus.
Right.
So anyway, but that was all part of the thing. And we've been talking about trying to get you back on because of the resonance that this one had. Correct. Or the first one had, for a while, actually, for a few years.
Yeah. We keep bouncing around.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
It's hard to.
I mean, the face-to-face thing is just a nightmare that I created for myself.
I know.
The technology wasn't as good.
That's
then.
true.
Now it's.
You could do it now.
Now it's pretty good.
You could do it now
if you know what you're doing. But I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to talk to someone.
Well, and I think a lot of the value of this particular vehicle, whatever you want to call it, is the back and forth. Because I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. It's like I like that. If I'm looking at a computer, I'm probably, not that I'm not as genuine, but you're talking to a computer.
Right. It's still a thing. And the other thing I found that I feel like works a lot of times is that we did have to we had to make this happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and we're sort of coincidentally, you're actually in Carbondale. We're in Craig's van. So this is old school kind of
very old
style.
School.
And we were actually parked in the same exact place that I interviewed Conrad Anker, which
makes me feel really important.
And it makes your skin feel.
It does. I feel silky smooth right now. Thank you, Conrad.
but the reason I bring that up is because that was one where Conrad, and I think I talked about it on the episode, where he made it happen. It was important to him to come over here and be on the Enormocast and do the face-to-face thing.
Oh, that's cool.
He was in Vail, and he's like, I'm coming over. I can come over tomorrow. I'll come to your house.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, and we happened to come up here on the RV, but anyhow, so that's a part of the face-to-face thing that is a little bit of a bonus to it, that I feel like, you know, you go through the trouble, you find each other, you sit down, then it's like, all right, well, let's get something done. You know,
right.
It's not like,
right.
Oh, I got this thing at 7 that I'm going to talk to this guy that I don't.
Yeah, I don't give a crap.
Yeah, but
blah blah blah. Yeah,
but I do it for my sponsors or whatever.
Right. This is different.
Yeah, this is totally different. So let's talk about, when we left off.
In our last episode,
7 years ago,
Bobby Brady was.
Yeah. You were still calling yourself a photographer, if I remember.
Yeah,
right.
I was.
Yeah,
I was.
And getting back, you were climbing again, not full force, I don't think.
No.
And you had a couple young kids who are now not young anymore.
Nope.
And you hadn't really started working sort of in the adaptive field as as sort of a coach or inspiration or any of that stuff. So, if we can kind of go back to that place, and I guess sort of pick up there. Actually, the question I have is that you were starting to get into it. Let's talk about the adaptive thing to begin with.
Yeah.
And maybe how your sort of message and your outlook on that has evolved a little bit, from inspiration to coach, or, what is your connection to, making your life around, being this coach or this this person in the adaptive sports field?
Well, I came back from Yosemite. I went back out to the valley with Jerem Fry and Pete Davis, and we did Zodiac. And that ended up being Gimp Monkeys, which was after that film where we met in 5 Point. Because 5 Point was about kind of failing in Yosemite.
Right.
And so then I was like, okay, I got this kind of thing I really want to get done. So we went back. We were successful on Zodiac. I come back to Colorado, and Timmy O'Neill hits me up and says, you should come to Boulder Canyon with me on Saturday. I have some vets I'm going to go climbing with. They're missing their legs or arms or whatever. And you should just talk to them about what it's like to be an adaptive climber. And I was completely against it. I had no desire. I was the typical, I think, self-centered climber, like just doing, this is what I want to do. I don't really have time or the desire to help somebody else in particular. But Timmy, being Timmy, very, very persuasive guy. And he talked me into it. I went down to Boulder Canyon Saturday morning, 8:00, whatever. We take these guys out. I think there were 6 of them, all in various degrees of disability. Some missing legs, some missing like parts of legs, all with really heavy PTSD. We go into Boulder Canyon, we start climbing, and it was the funniest, most inspirational, off-putting, just weird day I've ever had climbing. And I was like, oh, I want to do this more. This is fantastic. And so that just kind of turned my head into, oh, maybe this is something that I could do and use what I've learned in climbing and then adaptive climbing after my accident to help somebody else bridge that gap. So like whatever their new normal is, like if they're missing whatever they're missing, what their life can be like. And so, because I had some success in that arena, I had success with climbing. Cindy and I are still married, happily married. So I had some like what I felt like were some wisdom nuggets I could drop on them and say, hey, this is kind of how I do things. And maybe you can pick pieces of that up and use it in your own life. And that morphed into just being this person in the adaptive world. And I think that's what I am now, is just, I introduce people to climbing. I take them climbing. I show them how I climb and hopefully make them into climbers.
You know, when you started this, you were like, well, I was kind of this self-centered climber and wasn't interested in helping other people. I mean, it made me think that, like, yeah, because you'd gone through this incredibly life-changing and traumatic event. And I would guess that would make you feel, you know, like, oh, look, I got my own stuff to deal with.
Exactly.
I'm still dealing with it. Like, I don't have, you know, I'm the one who needs the I
need help.
Yeah, I'm the guy who needs to be coached out there.
Right.
So it was, you know, the transition from the two probably was sort of empowering to think that, well, okay, now maybe I'm not the guy that needs help as much as this guy here, this guy here, this guy here.
And that's what I tell people now, is like, I can, you know, people will look at me and they'll know about the accident and they'll know all the injuries I have. And they'll say, God, I can't believe you're able to do anything. And I always tell them, man, I can find people worse than me. And give me 5 minutes and I'll find someone worse than me.
Right.
It's just, there's always somebody worse. And so that is what I think I saw that day. It gave me perspective. Like, oh man, there's some messed up people, and maybe I should be, you know, am I going to be able to, like, help them, quote unquote? Maybe not, but, like, at least give them perspective. Maybe, like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, this sucks and I get it. And you're missing your leg, or your back is broken, your neck's broken. And so usually they'll have, like, pieces of the injuries I have. And so you can give them perspective. And that's what I got that day. And that was powerful. And that climbing was that vehicle that I could give back to them.
You know, this climbing thing is such, I mean, there's two things that like, I guess in a way, at least define your public persona. It's that you're missing a leg and that you're a climber.
Right.
Right. Have you ever been, like, I think a lot of climbers after a long time, woken up and just been like, maybe can I just stop doing this now? Or, like, you know, have you ever thought about, like, oh, I should move on from this? Or, like, I mean, where does climbing fit in your life as far as inspiring your own, you know, you're here coaching these people, you're inspiring them, you're trying to get them to have this perspective. What about your perspective?
That's an interesting question. And I was talking to Cindy about it. When all you do is climbing, you get burned out. There are points in my life now where I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to talk about climbing. I don't want to think about climbing. I want to think about something else, and do something else. And I think that's pretty natural. I don't ever feel like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore, because I genuinely still love to climb. I mean, I think it's one of the funnest things I've ever done. But, like, when I go into a climbing gym, like, cause I work in a lot of climbing gyms, I'm not always like, woohoo, you know, this is the best day of my life. It's like, you know, sometimes you feel like you're grinding it out. And so that I can put that on the back burner and I can, you know, go in and do what I'm there to do. But, like, it does affect your psyche then. Like, it's harder to get, like, up for going out when it's, you know, questionable weather, or, you know,
like tomorrow.
It's exactly. For example. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. I'm supposed to work outside, but you're like, oh rock God, rock climbing. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, that is a bit of a weird thing. Cause, like, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be a sponsored climber and just climb. And like you and I have spoken many times, like, that's just not the way the world, I mean, sponsored climber, it means so many different things now. And it's like, it affects your psyche.
You took a weird path to
really weird path. Yeah, oh, maybe. God, dude. I jumped off a cliff so I could get sponsored. There's a lot easier ways to do it.
Not suggested.
Don't do that. I just feel like, when it's the only thing that you're doing, it gets old. And I feel like that when I talk with climbers who have climbed as long as I have, like, you know, you and, like, there's not that many, first of all. I mean, God, like, 30 plus years is like, that's a pretty small pool. But I mean, I think everyone goes through phases of, like, not digging it and doing something else for a while and coming back to it, or just throttling it back a little bit. Right. I'll do that. I'll kind of change disciplines and throttle back a little bit. And then I'm psyched again.
Well, the reason I asked that too is because, you know, I just talked to Quinn Brett and put that episode out, I think a couple months ago at this point. And, you know, the the idea that we, as hardcore climbers, and, you know, you are, I am, Quinn is still in a lot of ways.
Yep.
You know, it's not just your, what you do, it's like your whole
It's who you are.
Group of people and your friends. And, you know, even Mark Twight talked about that. He hasn't climbed since 2000, but a big part of him is still a climber. And so with Quinn, it's, you know, it was definitely something we talked about of well, you know, how is it that you redefine a community when you've lost this connection to this thing that was such a big part of your life? And, but with you, you know, you didn't lose it, but you were at risk of losing it. I think you probably felt.
Yeah. And it comes different. It comes very, very different. And so like Quinn is a great example of like, she's not able to go back to climbing the way she was. Like I can climb in kind of the form I was before, obviously different, but like for Quinn, it's like a complete reinvention of this person. And so, that is really hard. I mean, I work with her periodically and I love her and I see the struggles that she has. And it's like, man, that's rough. Like, I don't know if I'd be a climber after that. If I became paralyzed tomorrow, I don't know if I'd be a climber.
Right.
It's because it's different. It's not the same game.
It's definitely, especially, you know, to be as good as she was.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And to be as prolific as she was. I have a question along those lines for you too, is, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but you know, I had, Jamie Logan on and, you know, talking about transitioning genders.
Yeah.
And her transition was fairly smooth. And so her perspective on it is a certain way. And I've heard from people who, not really a backlash, but just were kind of like, you know, that sounded really great for her, but it hasn't been like that for me.
Oh.
And it felt like maybe because of her situation, you know, she sort of glossed over some of the difficulties and some of the
because it went well.
Yeah, because it went well and she lived in Boulder and, you know, and so some people in different parts of the country that aren't, you know, quite as progressive or
welcoming.
Yeah, or accepting of that kind of thing, you know. So do you ever feel like that? Because everybody wants to say, okay, there's this disabled climber thing. And yet, like you said, when you went to these military guys, it was a whole breadth of different things, worse case than what happened to you. And, and, you know, you're very capable. What you went through came out, I think, overall, like really well, considering, I mean, death was the more
right
like that.
What should have happened?
But I mean, do people ever be like, well, yeah, it's easy for you because you have a leg? I mean, like Quinn, you know, she's paralyzed the waist down. Like, is anybody ever just like, like, or do you have to work through that with people to be like,
man, I think the biggest misconception of me is that people will go, well, it turned out really great for him. Right? Like, and that's kind of fucked up because it's like most people, barring my wife, don't know like the things you have to do on a daily basis. So, you know, like because I broke my back and neck so bad, you know, I have spinal cord injuries.
I forgot all about that.
Right. Yeah, right. Like, so people will be.
You told me all about it in that podcast.
And so
I totally forgot.
And you're like, God, that happened. That's right. Damn it.
Yeah.
You know, so people will say things to me like, almost like that. Like, well, you know, you have your one leg and they make this prosthetic for you and you can climb whatever route you want to climb within reason. And it's like the things that I have to deal with, on a daily basis that the people don't know about. And they shouldn't know about it. It's not their deal, but like they'll kind of downplay that and say, well, you know, he's been successful because he recovered so well. Well, I mean, I recovered as well as you can, but like, shoot, last year I got a staph infection because I wiped out in a shower. I was on crutches for 8 months.
Still, that's right.
Yeah, right? So like, my body is so messed up in so many different ways. You know, I take pills 3 times a day to kind of keep things in check. There's all these things that I have to do to make me, not make me, but allow me to do what I want to do. And that's what people don't see. They don't see the pocket full of pills I carry around. They don't see the mornings when I get up and I can barely move. And, you know, that's the private life that happens with me and Cindy and our kids, but like, you know, when they see me out climbing, they're like, oh, God, he seems fine. Like, why does he even have a handicap tag? Like, that's not cool. Right? But it's like, dude, it's like this body's a freaking train wreck most days. So it is weird because they, like Quinn has never said this, but like where she doesn't have the use of her legs, you know, she's probably never going to have that. It's going to be a lot harder. And I recognize that. But we all, like she says, you know, we're all snowflakes and everybody's different. And so you're dealing with what you're dealing with. I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with. And that's part of the humanness of it all.
So when you're working with folks, you know, that are in the depths of learning to deal with what's new.
Depths is a good word.
And, I mean, are you revealing that kind of intimate detail with these people?
Within reason.
Yeah.
Within reason. If I think a person really needs to hear like, okay, this is, if you want, like, I'm never going to tell someone the whole truth about my life and my body. That's just not going to happen.
Well, you just did.
I did. Just to millions of viewers.
Millions is a little bit of an exaggeration.
Come on.
But thank you.
Yeah. No, I think I'll tell them pieces of it and say, you know, yeah, you know, you've got XYZ. I have XYZ. And so I'm here to tell you that just becomes a part of something you have to deal with. And, you know, people don't want to talk about, you know, chronic pain. People don't want to talk about depression. They don't want to talk about, you know, cause they'll talk to me and they're like, well, you don't seem like you get down ever. And I'm like, well, that's because you don't live with me. So if you lived with me, you'd know that there's days where I'm not psyched. I mean, I don't run out the door every day and go, yeah. A lot of days I love, you know, everything that's happening, but you know, I mean, nobody does. Nobody gets out of bed every day and goes, woohoo. That just doesn't happen. So again, it goes back to perspective. It's like, what are you dealing with and how do you deal with it? I'm a big proponent of like that choice that we make. Cause you do get to choose that one. How am I going to handle this particular thing?
Was that something that you dealt with? Do you think?
Yeah.
Was it definable as that PTSD?
So I don't know. So at the time, I don't think I would have said it was PTSD. I think I would have just said, because I got so wrecked, every time I looked at climbing, it would rattle me. But that's PTSD. So like you can't control the emotion and you just don't know what's triggering it. And then once you identify the trigger, they're like, okay, well then that's PTSD and we avoid that trigger. So for me, when I came back to climbing, it was almost like I would have these anxiety attacks really bad, like at the cliff. And so some days I would literally not even be able to climb. I would just be like, no, I'm going to lose my mind. And so just through, I think, like doing it over a little at a time, over and over and over, that was how I dealt with it. And I had this strong desire to do it again. So I think sometimes like PTSD, they're not wanting to repeat the thing that actually gave them the PTSD.
Right.
Whereas I actually wanted to repeat the thing that gave it to me. So that's kind of weird. And I think that's what actually ended up helping me deal with it.
Right.
In a weird roundabout way, was like, this thing almost killed me, scares the crap out of me, but is actually still really appealing to me. And so it's almost like a bad marriage, you know?
Right.
I got hit, but like, oh, I still want to go back. And
right,
I
but don't
love
those
that person.
guys talk about combat that way too?
They do, but it's like they don't want to repeat it.
Right.
They don't want to like when I talk to them about their PTSD, they'll say, yeah, this dude shot at me. I had to kill him. I live with that every day. I don't want to do that again.
Right.
I'm actually trying to get away from it.
Right.
Whereas me, I was like running towards it. They're running away from it. And so when you're running away from it, it's actually, I think, a bit harder to come to grips with it because it's always in your rear view, but you're not really ever dealing with it. And so.
But killing people isn't something you can embrace and overcome the way you can climbing.
Exactly. And so they're dealing with these circumstances and even like their injuries, like if they roll over like an IED and they get blown up. Well, that traumatic event is now shaping the rest of their life and they're having to deal with like the loss from the injury, the loss of like what their life is going to be like, and then their loss of like their manhood, because that's like always pulled into question as well. And they're just, you know, the military guys, I have this mentality of like, when you're broken, you're not that performing soldier anymore.
You become sort of useless.
Yeah, exactly.
In the
like
system.
they kick you out. You're not in the military anymore. And so for me, climbing, never did that to me. Climbing was very accepting when I came back to it. The people were super supportive. These guys have support, but not in every arena. And
Right.
and the arena that was the most important for them, which was the military, they kind of lost that. And so when I see these guys like at these clinics, they're in a group of like-minded individuals, and that's really empowering to them. And so I get to see that happen. But man, when I see them, like when they come back, like from Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they were, they're sorting all this out. They're not in the military anymore. They're not technically like this hardcore soldier guy anymore. And that messes with your head quite a bit. So they're dealing with lots of different triggers, lots of different influences that they can be good or bad. And I think that's why there's substance abuse. There's, all this weird stuff that happens. And they're trying to navigate that with a broken body as well.
Let's move on to this movie that's out. How long has this film, Craig's Reaction, been out?
It's been out about 4 months.
Okay. So you've made a few films over the years. What do you think is different about this one?
So the difference here was Evolve kind of came up with this idea, like you got hurt, and that's interesting and important, but like we want to know what happened after. Like
Right.
Everybody knows that happened, but what do you do now? And so they were really open to like, what is the adaptive world like? Number one, because that's half your life. And then the other half of your life is my own climbing, my own selfish pursuit of climbing, which I still love to do. And so they introduced me to Cameron Mayer, who I didn't know at all. And Cam and I, at first I was like, man, this guy's going to like literally live with us for the next 8 to 9 months. And that's what happened. He kind of came to us. He came on all our family trips. He went on all our climbing trips. Dude, he came to Thanksgiving. And Cameron, he is one of the greatest people I've ever met. He's incredibly talented.
And this is
Bearcam Media.
Right.
Yeah. So if you don't know Bearcam, go check him out. So Bearcam Media, he lived with us for 8 or 9 months, and then we worked on the storyline together a bit. Cam had a vision of like, this is how it should go. And Cam kind of came up in the film. There's cut paper drawings of the accident. So we talked long and hard conversations about like, do we show that kind of stuff, or do we show real footage? Because I have real footage of things. And Cam came up with this cut paper thing, and it ended up being this really cool way to show what happened to me. And that was all his creative brainchild. And so Cam he was amazing. He just ran with it. And the film ended up being 24 minutes, which is just kind of right at that film festival level length. And it kind of documents the accident, but then also what I kind of decided to do was take that accident and kind of use it as a catalyst, which allowed me to not be a photographer. Not that I didn't like being a photographer, but I've done it for 25 years. It's kind of what I did my whole life. And this gave me this opportunity to become this climber in the outdoor industry that I wanted to be. And that film kind of shows that path.
Right. Was it funny or odd to be a photographer and being filmed by this guy that you don't know anything about?
It's incredibly odd. But Cam is like, if you get to meet Cam, he's very he's super dry. His sense of humor is very dry, very intelligent guy. And so he made it really easy. Like even just stupid stuff that would happen, like he'd crash the drone, and that made me feel like that made him very human to me. So I'm like, oh, he screws up too. That's awesome. I did that once or twice. I've dropped cameras, and you see someone else, because he's so creative and he's trying to get his art across to the masses. It was great to see that he's also this human guy that makes mistakes just like I do. And he was just great to work with.
And what's the reaction been?
It's been so that's what kind of blew. I just kind of thought, oh, we'll get in one film festival. That'd be cool. But it's been amazing. We've gotten in a really good selection of film festivals. It's won a couple awards for storyline and inspirational film and climbing film and things like that. And it's touring now with 3 different festivals. It's in Banff, it's in Mountain Film, and it's in Adventure Film. So it's touring all around the world right now. It's over right now. It's in China and Europe and then here in the States as well. So it's been great. I get people reach out all the time. Just, you know, like they're going through something or they have a family member who just got hurt or, you know, it's just little things. It doesn't matter. And then they always find our podcast is they'll see my name, they'll see the film, and then they go backwards. They start then they Google stalk you and they find it. It's easy to find, obviously. So, it's kind of a cool package to see that be this catalyst for people just to learn more about what I do.
So in the film, you talk about how it's at least half about your own climbing and your own sort of climbing goals.
Right.
Tell me about that. Tell me about what it means to be, climbing with a prosthetic. You know, I think you were still,
dude, we didn't even, I had no idea what I was doing. Honestly, when we did our podcast first, the climbing foot it was all so new to me.
Right.
And it was like, you know, legs were falling off. I mean, it just wasn't working all the time.
Cause wasn't that one of the things that happened to your buddy?
His whole leg fell off.
Yeah, the leg falling off.
Hung up in his sling, and it was, I mean, I could have killed somebody and hurt him really bad. So it was all so very, very new. And now, like, with companies like Evolve who came along and said, well, we want to, like, why don't we just, like, make a foot that actually works? That would be kind of cool. And they did. And so we made this thing called the EAF, which I can climb on anything on now. And my climbing, I mean, it's like you're climbing, you know, it morphs and changes as you grow older, I think. You're doing things that are interesting to you. And so like I got more into sport climbing after we talked, cause I was trad climbing and wall climbing a lot then. And a lot of it's cause like Cindy likes to single pitch sport climb. She's crazy strong. And so she loves single pitch sport climbing. So I was like, oh, I kind of like this too. This is fun. Low commitment. You can go do it anywhere. It kind of works with traveling really well. So we can travel to these different
and you had
areas.
A family too.
We had a family. Yeah. Exactly. So 2 young kids at the time, who weren't climbing. So single pitch sport climbing works out really great for a family. And so we bent that way, I think. And so those goals then became the ones that I was going after. Like, okay, well, maybe not the hardest route I could climb, but like there was definitely some of that. And that continues to be that, but just I kind of like the whole movement of sport climbing where you're just focusing on just like the pure actual move as opposed to me being scared out of my mind trying to put a piece in, doing whatever I'm doing. Sport climbing gives you that freedom of, I'm just going to go hard and fall and that's okay. And I really like that feeling, of kind of figuring out where that all takes me. And I like to do it with Cindy. And so what she'll do now is, she'll help me teach clinics. She didn't come to this one, but she'll come with me. And so we selfishly plan 5 extra days. So teach for 3 days, then stay for 5 and climb. Hey, exactly. Works out great.
So what's hiking like for you?
So I just had a woman say to me, she cut her leg off and, she's like, I just want to be able to hike again. And Cindy goes, he doesn't hike. He can't hike. Like I can't hike really. I mean, I can carry a load for sure. Like I could carry a load to El Cap, the base of El Cap to the nose.
Right.
But like if you make me go to Zodiac again, like I'd probably shoot you. It would just not be pretty. So I can carry a load for like a short amount of time, or like I can do an approach to, like we were just in Mexico and El Salto, and those approaches are pretty short and, but so I can carry a load, no worry. But if I have to walk like more than a half hour, my stump just gets all ground up and it's like, it's just not a pleasant feeling. And then my other ankle is all wonky. So it's like that ankle hurts more.
You shredded that too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that one just happened to heal, quote unquote heal, like better than the one that I cut off, obviously. But it's like when I walk on uneven ground, especially talus, that ankle just hurts like a mother. So I don't seek long approaches anymore. Even like ice climbing, like I'll go to Ouray. That's a good approach for me. But like, man, going up in the park and stuff, like in Rocky Mountain National Park, God, dude, it just beats me up so bad. I pay for it the next day, which is kind of sucks.
Do you have anything to put on skis?
I could ski. I could skin and Black Diamond has helped me with like different attachments that I could put like a boot attachment that would go into my prosthetic a lot quicker and easier. So there's ways to do it, But a lot of me just goes, nah, I don't really need to do it.
Right.
So like, why even put that energy there? I don't have to. So.
Right. Well, I don't know if I made the connection at the time, even though I knew about this guy, but I've since interviewed Hugh Herr, who's like the guru of this prosthetic technology. Have you had any interaction with that guy? Or is he out in the
dude? He's
like the stratosphere.
He's like the fucking stratosphere, like times 10. Yeah, he's like the rock star. He is so smart. And right when I was going to cut my leg off, he emailed me, and I actually don't even know how he found out. Friend of a friend, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he was like, hey, if you have any questions, just go ahead and, fire them at me. And he's a really good emailer. He's really hard to talk to though, cause he's so smart. Oh my God. It's horrible. Yeah. I was in the room. You know what I mean, right? Like you're just like, oh God, this is going so badly. Right. But when he's emailing, it's like, oh, this guy's awesome. Okay. But he said to me, and I will never forget this. He said, just go ahead and write off the whole first year. Cause he's like, somebody told me to do that. And I was like, nah, whatever. And he was doing pull-ups on, hang boards and things. And so when he told me that, I thought, that's because he cut both his legs off. So I probably just need like 3 months.
6 months.
Yeah,
half
right.
A year.
You can do that
One
math.
leg,
whatever.
2 legs, 1 year, half
just
year.
divide by 2.
Right.
And I went back. I was still a photographer, and I was walking through the studio on crutches, being a dumbass, and I tripped and I fell and I smashed my stump on the ground.
God, I want to say you did talk about that.
I might have talked about it. And that was like, I was like, oh, he is so much smarter than me, and I should probably listen to everything he says. And so we've connected on and off over the years. Right. He's light years ahead of everyone, like with just like what a prosthetic can do. I mean, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. And he's climbing again too, I think. Yeah,
he climbs. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he went through kind of your era before he was inventing things of like dealing with the pain and just like working through it, and like to see the pictures of the things he was really building in his garage, literally.
Oh yeah.
And
the wedges and all these weird things.
Yeah. Well, and he had crack climbing,
crack foot, crack
feet.
And then he got crap for it though, which was really funny to me.
Yeah. He got crap because he would extend them.
Yeah, he made himself taller.
Yeah, he made himself considerably taller.
Yeah. For City Park, right?
Yeah, something like that. But so I mean, just in general, people were like,
people got.
But he didn't care. He was like,
oh no, yeah.
So.
And my thing was like, he doesn't have legs. Like, I mean, shit. He can only be so critical at some point. But that guy is an incredible genius.
Well, I thought of him just now because you said something about this woman who just wanted to hike again.
Yeah.
And it seems like, that level of technology actually could allow people that freedom if they could. I'm not sure, maybe not, but
it's weird. It's like you would think like, okay, so if that woman I'm thinking of just got like that bionic ankle, that's what it's called. Could she hike again? But then there's all these other weird mitigating factors. Like, does she have like nerve pain? Does she have a good socket fit? All these things like that aren't really tech based.
Right.
It's the human form being squeezed into this carbon fiber shell. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like maybe she would do really well with something like that. But I don't know. I mean, his device is so groundbreaking. I don't think we've even begun to scratch what it can actually do. Right. That's what I think.
So in the years since when did the accident happen?
The accident happened in 2002 and then I amputated in 2003.
Okay, so it's been 15 solid years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going on 16. So, how's the technology changed for you, or are we sort of at a plateau?
I think we're at a plateau. Like the climbing technology changed a lot because of the Evolve foot. That was a big jump forward for us, and we're actually working on a downturned version of that foot, so like that'll help in kind of steeper climbing. But as far as like prosthetics go, I feel like they're kind of at this. They've been at the same point for like the past 10 years or so. Like Hugh's foot has been out for a while, quite some time. It's maybe more mass marketed now, but like the price points are coming down, so that helps it. But like it doesn't, like I'm wearing the same foot and ankle that I've been wearing for 10 years, I think, same foot. So they just don't change that much. I mean, you can, and until somebody figures out something really groundbreaking again, I don't think think it's going to change that much.
Right.
I don't think it can really.
Well, that's not Hugh Herwood.
He would probably punch me in the face right now, but like, I mean,
no, he wouldn't. He would just quietly look at you and with his,
scare the shit out of me.
Right.
And be like, oh my God.
With his, like, you're such a sad little human. Look
you have such a small mind.
Right,
you have
exactly.
no mind whatsoever. And he's right. He's totally right. God, it's embarrassing.
It's a good thing he's not here.
I know. Thank
in
God.
the van.
Thank God.
Being this coach, this adaptive coach, I keep calling you that. Is that a good word for it?
I don't know.
What,
I was
what,
like,
how
when
would
you said that the first time, I was like, oh, that's a weird, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is.
Because inspiration doesn't sound right.
I hate that word too.
Yeah, because that's just more of like, oh, you're, up there giving talks and then leaving, but you're actually,
Yeah, I'm just
climbing with these guys.
I'm still a dirtbag climber.
Yeah, and
right?
You're out filleting them and getting them up stuff and all that stuff. Yeah,
next to the pee bottle. And,
yeah,
oh,
really?
I just wanted to scare you a little bit. I don't know that it's coaching. I think it's more like just, what the hell is it?
Come on. What's on your business card?
I don't have a
Put inspiration on it.
I don't have a business card.
Just say DeMartino.
That's what I should do.
Inspiration.
Boom. No phone number, no nothing. It'd be like Mark Twain. No address, nothing. Just Don't even try to contact
don't
me.
Contact me.
I'll get a hold of you.
When you need inspiration, I'll be there.
It'll be like, boom, Shazam.
Well, anyway, whatever. Now I lost my train of thought. Whatever it is, whatever the hell it is you do, to help people learn how to deal with.
I'm a helper.
You're a helper. Okay.
Climbing helper.
Professional climbing helper.
I'm a helper. Yep.
What the hell was I going to ask you now? Hold on a second. Okay.
See, it's not my fault.
I know.
It's not my fault.
We're not swearing nearly as much this time.
Yeah.
Although you have.
I did.
I know. That's another part of the
That's a
podcast.
whole. Yeah.
Is Craig didn't think he swore in the podcast, and he actually.
I'd bet you money I didn't.
He accused me of swearing too much, and then I did an edit of it where I took all the swear words out and put them on a reel and gave them to.
And it's like 30 seconds.
It's like of just quick little swear words. Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
And then
he sent it to me, and I imported it into my iTunes, not thinking about that I shared that account with Maya and Will. And so then they would, when they imported or when they download whatever, updated theirs, they got that. And so we would literally be out hiking or walking to a crag somewhere, and they would just start giggling and be like, "Oh, you just jumped."
Because they got their headphones in, and they'd get the 30 seconds of their dad.
30 seconds of their dad.
And then we're talking like they were like middle school kids.
Oh God, they were, at best. And I was like, oh God, there's nothing prouder as a dad for your son to look at you and go, "Ah, you just said motherfucker."
Okay, so you just said it again.
See, beep.
This is explicit. The reason I keep bringing this up is that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned that you give folks sort of a glimpse into the intimate details when they kind of need it, maybe, or when it might be helpful to them. But you have raised a whole family. If it was, your kids are just about, one's in college, one's about to enter college, so they were little when it happened.
Yep.
And you, they were both. 2 and 4.
Yeah.
And so they've grown up with this guy. So, here you are like, we don't want to use the word, but it's true. That the podcast you did for me was flat out inspiring. We can use it. You keep getting people talking to you. This film that you made is inspiring. So have your kids had any perspective on you being different, or you're just dad that's my dad. This is my guy.
Yeah. I think it's the latter, I would think, just because they don't know anything different. Right. They don't know me in any different form.
Right.
And so I'm just the dad who's the climber who does this thing, and they're climbers. And so
but then as they became climbers, didn't they have some perspective on you as this figure?
I don't. That's a.
You said
really,
your.
my daughter dated.
We can't talk. We can't talk out of turn. about your kids too much but
well, we can't. No.
Your daughter's dating a climber
She did a climber. She did.
Which scared the hell out of you.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, it could be any guy.
Right.
It would probably still terrify me.
Right.
But that in particular, he was a climber, so he knew me. And so that's, she's like, oh, he's listened to the Enormocast.
Right.
And he's like, he'd love to meet you. And I'm like, like I said to you, I was like, there's no need for me to talk with him. And there's no need. Nothing need. I'm not going to do it. But I think I'm sure
you didn't want to meet your daughter's boyfriend.
I met him. He's
cool.
He's a very nice guy.
Okay,
I will say
cool.
that.
All right, cool.
They're not even dating, but he's a very nice guy.
Okay. Because he's listening to this one now
probably
too.
Is. So I feel like, I don't know, I wonder, I've thought about this, I wonder if they just get sick of it where they're just like, oh, that's your dad, that's so neat. And I wonder if they're just like, oh God, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Right, right.
I mean, I think that's how I would probably be if my dad was a famous golfer or whatever. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's that's just what their dad does.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. What do you hope that they learned from having you as a dad that might be specific to your situation that's different from other dads?
I think the biggest thing, and I would say this to anyone, is what I want them to take away from all of this is bad stuff's going to happen. No one gets a free pass, so is it going to be as bad as whatever happened to me? Maybe. It could be worse. It could maybe not as bad, but something is going to go wonky for you. And I hope that they looked at it and went, you know what? Even with all that bad crap, he was able to come back and kind of do what he loved to do. He actually made it into a career. And him and my mom are still married. They're still happy. Our family didn't explode. And I want them to see the importance of that, that I've always thought that my family was the most important thing. And that kind of guided my path through all of this anyway. So I hope they see that and go, okay, that's what they did right, was even though they had all this adversity thrown at them, and it got really dark for a long time, they were still, a team. And they made sure that we knew that we were all in this together and we were going to figure it out together and go forward. So that adversity ended up making us actually a lot stronger. And that sounds really cliche, I know, but it does end up making you a lot stronger person and a stronger family, I think. I mean, cause if you know, oh God, man, this isn't as bad as when my dad fell off a cliff, right. It's you realize oh, this stuff that we're dealing with right now is not that bad. We can deal with that.
Do you think as kids, once they weren't just 2 and 4, but, got older and more autonomous, do you think they had a glimpse into how hard it was for you? Or were you able to keep that? I mean, I just think about my parents and you have this image of the way you thought it was or a lot of people's parents. And then as an adult, you find out that it wasn't that way. I mean,
bubbles popped.
A little bit. I mean, our parents are so idealized in a lot of ways, even terrible parents, their kids are fully idealize them. So do you think they had a glimpse of it or?
I think that as they got older, I would say late teens, we would talk about stuff and they would see me when I was really hurting.
Right.
And they saw the difference. Okay, one day he's like this, but then this other day, holy crap, he's not doing so good. And so they would see the differences in the way I would do things. And then they also, I think, Will in particular would ask questions hey, what's it like when you feel like this particularly? What does that feel like? And I would tell him honestly what it felt like. Maya has always wanted to. And
you could use swear words because he was used to it.
I could swear, exactly. They have it on their iPod. Thanks to you. Maya has always been a really she wants to know what you're thinking and feeling. And as she's gotten older, so we've had really good conversations about that kind of stuff. When shit's not good, it's not, I'm honest about it. I don't try to hide it anymore. When they were younger, I did. I didn't want them to see me in, lots of different positions of pain or whatever. I tried to hide that more. But now, as they've gotten older and mature and like you said, kind of on their own, I think the value of honesty is good. I can't ever undersell that to them. See, and that was like somebody just said to me legacy. They said, what they were asking about legacy and like, what would your legacy be to your kids? And I had never thought of that before. And then I started really mulling it over.
It makes it seem like you're about to die.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's not cool.
And you're kind of like, oh, that's scary. Right. But like, cause like you and I have talked about, friends who have died, and you try to get your head around like, what is that like if you die, like what are they going to remember, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when I was watching some of the interview stuff from the kids when we made the film with Cam, and the things they said were really like pretty deep and like thoughtful. And I thought, oh, then maybe we just by sheer luck did something right, where the legacy is that they look at it, they look at this set of circumstances and go, okay, those circumstances probably should have defined him in some form, and they do, but day to day, it doesn't define him. The accident was this thing that happened, and then he moved on from it. And that's what I've always wanted them to understand, like that I work with a lot of people where that traumatic event is what defines them. Mm-hmm. And that's a really hard place to be, I think. And whereas I always wanted it to just be this thing that happened and it was horrific, but then I was able to kind of move past it. I didn't want to, you don't want to stay in that negative spot all the time. You don't want the worst part of your life to define who you are. You want that to be a constantly moving target. And I think that's what our kids I think they've really understood that and grasped it, more than I could probably ever teach it, because that's just how we live our life. We just kind of try to move forward all the time. And I think I see that in them too, like where they get racked around a little bit, with whatever school stress, all that stuff. I watch them navigate that, and I hope they go, yeah, my parents navigated this really hard thing. I'll get through this too. It's fine. It's a phase, and that's the accident was a phase of my life. It's a big phase, but it's just one,
right,
in line of many.
Right.
Hopefully.
Well, it's interesting because it's sort of it has to be sort of a balance, because you can't deny the fact that people are going to be interested in this thing.
Right.
You're in the climbing dream and you've got shorts on.
Correct.
Like nobody's not noticing that there's this cat over there with a prosthetic who's cranking, And when I met Hugh, he's got trousers on and very distinctly rolled up.
Right. So you can see it.
And it was clear to me after talking to him that was part of the deal of like, let's just check this out. Let's just get this out of the way. But nevertheless, it is sort of defining you in that sense. Do you ever feel that? I mean, you must feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. And I think early on I was like, I distinctly remember thinking, okay, so I can hide this. I can try to hide it, or I can just own it, because it is what it is. I can't change it now.
Right.
I mean, I can't like grow the leg back. So I figured, okay, I'm just going to own it. I'm going to wear shorts because it's more comfortable for me, with switching legs. And because of my spinal cord injury, I can't feel temperature in my other leg anyway. And I can't feel that foot anyway. So it's like, what am I wearing pants for? Like I really don't have to protect it. I can't feel it anyway. So I was like, screw it.
Maybe that's a good reason to protect it.
Yeah, probably.
But anyway.
A smarter person would. But I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to own it. I'm not going to put coverings on my leg. I'm just going to let the carbon fiber and the metal be there. And that's what I have a fake leg. And at one point I said to I think I said to Maya, I would show up to pick them up from school, and I would come from climbing. So I would be dirty. I'd have chalk all over me, dirt. And I'd be wearing shorts with this leg thing. And I would be looking at the other dads, and they would come from their offices, and, they're in slacks and nice shirts or ties.
And you'd feel sorry for them.
I felt like a dirtbag.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh God, I look terrible. This is terrible. And so one day I just felt kind of self-conscious, and I said to her, I was like, do you want me to stop at home and change? And she was like, oh, no. And she said what you said. Cool. Yeah. She was like, Dad, she's like, most of those guys hate their lives. Like,
right. That's the way I always see those guys. I'm like, oh, I feel sorry for you.
I know. And that's how I think. I look at them and I go, oh God, dude, cubicle. That's
terrible.
horrible.
I'm terrible.
I know.
defining these people. They probably have wonderful lives. But my point, I guess, getting back to it is, it's like, I think it would be very difficult for someone with severe injuries, both legs, wheelchairs, all those things, to, it's not even move on from it. It's sort of like come to peace with the fact that is noticeable. That's something, and
it's you.
And it's
like
you
can't,
right.
You're still that person.
Right.
That leg is me.
Right.
It's just a different version of me. But like, so me hiding that would be like you hiding, I don't know. Like that'd be like you saying, I'll wear hats because no one knows doesn't know I don't have hair. Right? Like that's a part of you. That's a part of your persona. So yeah, like why would you hide that? Right? Like you have a nice head. So that's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
Why would you know what I mean? Like it's who you are.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I think in the beginning, and people, it's probably a very big leap to again come to terms with it, I guess, is the way it sounds, of like not defining you, but still being, this somewhat of a focal point, at least when people first meet you.
Yep.
And so it'd be really difficult to get out. Yeah, it'd be difficult.
They stare, and people, I always joke, like, I know what girls with big boobs feel like, because, people, like, their eyes drift down and then they pop back up. And it's like, dude, I saw you do it. Like, just don't, like, just look. If you want to look, just look. Like, little kids are great. They come up and they kick it, and they, you know what I mean? They want
they don't get, no pretense.
Yeah,
they're just like, this thing is
like
weird.
If Miles sees
this
it,
guy's
like,
an android.
Right, this guy's part robot. So like, that's a wonderful
which is super cool.
It is super, it's like, that's rad, right? So it's like, I wish people would just deal with it, because like, you're already self-conscious when it's new. Like the first time I saw myself without my leg and all the scars on my back and all that stuff, it's like, oh my God, that's horrible. But then you realize, okay, that's me. That's what I got. And so I'm going to just own that. But then you go out and, you're going into Kmart. Somebody's like staring at your leg, and they're just like not hiding it at all. Or you have a kid point at you or whatever. And that can mess with your sense of reality. And, you have to get comfortable with that.
Right.
And you have to get to that point where it's unfortunate to have to say it, but it's like you get to that point where you're like, I don't care. Right. I don't care what you think. Like, I'm not here to make you feel happier about this. This is me.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And then it's probably exacerbated by the fact that other people are uncomfortable, and you can tell.
Oh yeah.
And maybe they're overcompensating for not.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And someone said to me once, the reason they feel uncomfortable is because they realize that could be me.
Right.
You don't look at a person and go, oh, that would never happen to me. Oh God, that could happen to anyone within a split second. And it's almost like a reality check. Like, oh God, that could actually happen to me. I could be in a wheelchair. I could be like Quinn, or I could be like Craig and miss my leg and have a fused back and neck and all this weird crap. It's random, weird stuff. I met a guy today at this clinic. He fell 8 feet off a ladder. 8 feet. I fell 100 feet.
Right.
He's completely paralyzed, paraplegic.
Yeah.
So like, how is that even fair? Like it's so random and so weird. And people see it and go, oh my God, that could be me in a heartbeat.
Man. Yeah. It's wild. You're talking about, working with people in climbing. Does it go beyond that? Does the scope of kind of your adaptive message, clinicking, whatever, or have you ever thought about sort of going beyond just climbing?
I'll do speaking gigs, where I'll go and speak to non-climbing communities, because the message there is the same. It's just it comes in a different package. But I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk in any other zone, really. Like, I mean, you don't want me teaching like your kindergarten class, that's for sure.
You swear too much.
I swear too much. But like, it's just, I feel like climbing is my group of people. Like, they're the ones I get and know, and they get me.
Right.
And, very welcoming tribe. And like, I see now, like this year in particular, like even festivals are starting to embrace it. Like, hey, how can we be more inclusive? Like, how can we get wheelchair folks here? How can we have people with limb loss, as part of our festival? And I'm working up in Lander this summer, at the International Climbers Festival, because that's what they want to do. And so I dig that. Like, I think that's my zone. When I get out of that zone, I'm probably not as effective. I don't think I would be. Because even when I speak, like if I speak at a business, they like the story. They love the idea of the accident happening and like, oh God, he overcame and came back. And that's what they'll use. But like, that's not the whole story. So, they that's the piece they want. And I understand that. And, and again, that's part of owning it and saying, yeah, okay, that's cool. That's fine. That's what we'll talk about. But when I get in climbing, climbers want to know more like, okay, what about, how did you deal with fear of falling again? How did you deal with the depression of climbing, of not being able to climb, of like hurting? How do you deal with that? That's what they want to know about. And that's my sweet spot. So.
Yeah. But the reason I asked that is that we haven't talked about climbing very much in this podcast.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think about it. Think about like what it would take to give you the skills to talk beyond that. Because you've got raising a family as an experience. You've got, and then just the general thing, like we were just talking about being a public figure around this thing, but not defined by it. There's some message in there. It seems like that could be really helpful if you really fleshed it out. I don't know. I'm just like riffing, listening to you.
And maybe one of your big corporate sponsors will contact me now.
Right. Yeah, but they're climbing sponsors.
Damn it.
I know. If I had a good, if Toyota was sponsoring me, we wouldn't be here in this van. That's for sure.
We wouldn't be in a Ford van.
Exactly.
But if maybe Ford.
Yeah,
I'm
Ford.
Just saying.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just me ripping here at the end because, so the first time we got together was a lot about the climbing.
It was
accident.
climbing.
But this time we haven't talked about climbing that much. There's a lot to be learned.
Then the Enormocast maybe is
beyond that. Yeah.
Reaching out to.
No, I'm the same way. It's like people are like, you should do get a mountain bike around there. I'm like, I don't know what to talk to a mountain biker about. This is it's like you pedal harder, you go faster.
Yeah, exactly.
What is there?
Exactly. You go up the hill, you go down the hill.
But anyway, I don't know, just sort of riffing. But so we just pulled off another one.
7 years in the making.
7 years in the making. We'll see you in 2026.
Yep. I'll be 100 and something.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
Even more creaky we both will be.
Exactly.
I won't be able to hike up the Talus either at that point. So what's going on this summer? Tell me about the clinics, the festivals, the movie, and the whole thing, and then we'll get you. You are home.
I am home.
We'll let you drive your home to wherever it's going to be.
I'm just going to roll my home to a parking spot.
Right. The glamorous life of an adaptive,
incredibly glamorous,
maybe inspiration. That's how inspirations live. Is they live in their van in parking lots.
Exactly.
In Aspen,
Colorado. Exactly. And they can see this.
Those are the perks of the inspiration.
Incredible. They can see the van live in person this summer. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, up in Lander, right?
Up in Lander. I'll be in Lander at that International Climbers Fest, and then the film will tour all summer. It'll be in Banff. It'll be in mountain film, and it'll be in adventure film. But even if you don't go to a festival, which I would tell you to go because they're really fun, but if you don't, you can see it they can go to Amazon, they can watch it there, or they can get it on iTunes. Cool. And then they'll see me. Me and Cindy are all over the place. So we're in the West a bunch, a little bit in the, out East, I think, in the later summer. So when you're at a crag, if you see a one-legged guy, pretty good chance, maybe me.
All right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. The sun glinting off of it.
The sun glinting off my polished leg. Come up and say hi.
T-shirt that says I'm not an inspiration.
Exactly. Do you want to see my van?
All right. Thanks for having me to your van, Craig.
Thank you, dude.
And thanks for coming back on the show.
Love it. Thank you.
All right, folks, thanks for listening. And thanks to Craig for showing up in downtown Carbondale and getting that one done. Hopefully you can check him out up in Lander. If you go to the festival this summer, there's a chance I'll be up there as well. And, of course, please go have a look at his film, Craig's Reaction. I think those guys, him and Bear Cam, did a special bit of work there. Okay, folks, spring climbing season here in the North American zone is starting to get into full swing, at least down here in Colorado. So I know you guys are dusting off those habits that maybe you hung up for skiing over the winter. So please, as you're getting back into it, be careful, be awake, pay attention, extra review on all those systems. Check the knot. God damn. I just saw a big debate again about the bowline versus the figure eight versus whatever. Doesn't matter if you double check. Both of those things will stay tight if you double check that it's done right every single time.
Did you ever think that maybe there's more to life than being really, really, really ridiculously good looking? I mean, maybe we should be doing something more meaningful with our lives. Like helping people.
Derek, what people?
I don't know. People who need help.